Sometimes I forget just how insane Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's really is. It starts with card games on motorcycles and ends with time travel, a global conspiracy, and a dragon with 23,000 attack points. But that's exactly what makes this series so unique. It's the anime where the main character literally saves the future by playing cards at 300 kilometers per hour. Today we're diving back into everything that went down in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's. From the grudge match between Yusei and Jack in the satellite junkyard, to the final showdown with Z1 on a floating space station. We've got Dark Signers, Synchro Summons, Axel Synchros, and even a dragon that attacks 5 times in a row. It's so over the top, you've got to see it to believe it. So grab a comfy seat, switch on that nostalgia mode, and don't forget to subscribe, because this is the full story of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's, from the very first duel to the final riding duel. Let's go. Domino City, where skateboarding is kid stuff and the real thrill comes from dueling on motorcycles. And who's the king of this wild ride? None other than Jack Atlas. Not only does he hold the title of Duel King, but he's also the city's #1 intellectual property thief. Dude straight up jacked both the D-Wheel and Stardust Dragon from his best friend without even blinking. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bridge, in the junkyard known as Satellite, we find Yusei, the real owner of the D-Wheel and Stardust, who's definitely not over that betrayal. With the help of his homies Rally, Tank, and Blitz, he puts together a scrappy little ride and watches Jack get hyped up on TV, like that crush who ghosts you and then posts "New life, new vibe." In a classic anime move, Rally decides to play Robin Hood of the slums and steals a part to help his buddy. But as with every genius plan, the cops show up. So what does Yusei do? Challenges Officer Tetsu to a duel. And here's the kicker. He's using cards he literally pulled out of the trash. But in the hands of a main character, even trash cards can turn into Exodia. Using pure scrap ingenuity, Yusei pulls off his first Synchro summon, calls out Junk Warrior, and rubs it in Tetsu's face. It's not about the card, it's about who's playing it. Tetsu loses, gets humiliated, and Yusei walks away a legend, and the showdown everyone's been waiting for finally goes down. Yusei crashes into Domino City with nothing but guts, a busted bike that definitely wouldn't pass inspection, and a score to settle. He comes face to face with Jack Atlas for a duel that's basically, "Give me back my dragon, you thief." Jack starts off flexing hard, summoning Stardust Dragon, yep, the one he stole from Yusei, and Red Dragon Archfiend. Gotta admit, the guy might be a thief, but he's no fool. He brought the two best to the table. The duel turns into a full-blown fireworks display of traps, Stardust on Stardust action, and effects that look more like Kamehameha blasts than card plays. Things escalate so much they blow the moment reactor, knockout power across the entire city, and, of course, the cops show up. Because if there's one thing this anime never runs short on, besides drama, it's police reports. Congratulations, Yusei. You're now unemployed, bikeless, and a convict. Behind bars, he meets Yanagi, some random old guy who looks like he stumbled out of an astrology podcast, and starts rambling about fate, marks on arms, and mystical dragons. Because why not? Yusei soon finds out he's actually one of the signers, a bunch of people randomly handpicked by a celestial entity called the Crimson Dragon to carry the weight of the world on their backs, while everyone else just vibes. Naturally, Rex Goodwin, the CEO of the Apocalypse and master at turning supernatural threats into televised sporting events, is keeping a close eye on him. And as usual, Goodwin starts pulling the strings for the next arc of suffering, the Fortune Cup. If you thought things were getting weird, hold on tight, because here she comes. Akiza Izinski, also known in the scene as the Black Rose Witch, the smoothest goth in the neighborhood. She doesn't come to play, she comes to wreck everything. Literally. She summons her Black Rose Dragon, which doesn't just wipe the field, it blows up actual buildings, plants, cars, and, if you're not careful, your self-esteem too. When she spots the signer mark on Yusei's arm, she hits him with the classic "You too," gives him a dramatic look, and vanishes into the chaos. Meanwhile, Goodwin is just chilling in the stands, sipping his coffee and jotting down in his little notebook. Another signer confirmed. Apocalypse bingo. Here we go. And so, the Fortune Cup begins. A cleverly disguised excuse for Goodwin to track down all the signers, without making it look like he's out here kidnapping people. And who decides to do a bit of twin cosplay to join the tournament? Leo, of course, because identity fraud is apparently only illegal outside of anime. Leo goes up against Greiger, who not only has a ridiculously overpowered deck, but also delivers a motivational speech straight out of a life coach seminar about equality for all. The result? Leo gets absolutely wrecked. Greiger drops not one, not two, but 3 reactor monsters onto the field, and they punish you just for existing. You play a card, lose life points. You look at your deck, lose life points. Think about making a move, too late, you're dead. dead. In the final blow, Dreiger draws Flying Fortress Skyfire, a floating war machine that basically says, "Congrats, you lost just by showing up." Meanwhile, the arena's sensors pick up Sinner energy, but it's not coming from Leo. It's coming from his sister Luna, just chilling in the stands like it's no big deal. Akiza Izinski is back in the game, this time as an official contender in the Fortune Cup. And who's the unlucky soul standing in her way? Some guy named Jill, who thought he was being clever running a deck full of justice-themed knights. Spoiler, he wasn't. Akiza claps back with her signature Black Rose Dragon, turning the field into a nightmarish version of SimCity natural disasters. Her cards dish out physical, psychological, and possibly even emotional damage. Poor Jill probably left the duel straight into a therapy session. In the end, she plays Mark of the Rose, hijacks her opponent's monster, chains some terrifying combos together, and finishes with Black Rose Flare, basically a cosmic slap to the face. And the audience? They're screaming witch, as if this duel came with a bonus live-action reenactment of the Spanish Inquisition. If you thought things were already wild, hold on tight. This episode dials it up to 11. Apparently, cards alone just aren't enough anymore. Now it's time to take the duel to another dimension. That's right, we've got astral projection, spiritual possession, and yes, it all involves a child. The real Luna, who up until now was peacefully watching her brother get smacked around, suddenly gets pulled into the Fortune Cup. And who does she face? Professor Frank, a duel coach who doesn't just play cards. He throws in gaslighting, psychological manipulation, and free reverse therapy sessions. Frank activates a field spell called Ancient Forest, which turns out to be much more than just a scenic backdrop. Nope, it's a literal portal to the dual monster spirit realm, where those cute little card creatures come to life. And because no episode of this anime is complete without some childhood trauma, we learn Luna's been to this world before, nearly got her brother Leo killed, and bailed like someone dodging overdue bills. Frank, a villain in a university professor disguise, summons none other than Ido, the supreme magical force, a creature that basically exists to torment spirits and crush any shred of hope in this show. And Luna, she's got to fight not just for herself, but for the fate of the entire spirit world. If things were already going downhill last episode, now they've officially gone off a cliff with no brakes. The spirit world is literally falling apart. In the real world, Leo just passes out, because of course, when your twin sister is fighting interdimensional demonic forces, it messes with your biological Wi-Fi. Professor Frank drops the bomb that he's actually just a pawn of a much bigger evil force, one that's using Ido to dump toxic waste into the spirit world until it's completely corrupted. Ancient Fairy Dragon, the cute little dragon everyone thought was just rare Pokemon material, is getting poisoned by evil radiation. Luna finally pulls the classic anime protagonist move. She embraces her destiny, gets her act together, activates a card called Fairy Wind, shatters all spiritual chains, yells some dramatic catchphrases, and becomes a full-on heroine. The duel ends in a draw because, you know, plot balance, but she manages to save the spirit world in the process. And in the real world, Leo wakes up at the exact moment Luna returns from the parallel dimension. The cherry on top, the signer's mark glows on Luna's arm, making it crystal clear that she's now officially in Goodwin's Apocalypse Bingo. Akiza Izinski has made it to the finals of the Fortune Cup, and she didn't get there handing out roses. She absolutely obliterated Commander Kota, leaving the poor guy in the ICU. The audience, always so reasonable, is now split between sheer terror of the Black Rose Witch and their shared obsession with other people's misfortunes, openly rooting to see her crushed. Sayer, the leader of the Arcadia movement cult, yes, a cult disguised as an NGO, works his mind-bending magic on Akiza. He drills into her head that the little signer mark on her arm is basically an Egyptian-level curse. And of course, that Yusei, another bearer of the cursed mark, needs to be eliminated, preferably with a bit of dramatic flair. So here comes Yusei, with all the serenity of a Tibetan monk, ready to save Akiza, one duel at a time. Meanwhile, the ever-compassionate crowd is basically chanting, "Burn the witch." Lovely atmosphere. Akiza enters full throttle, flooding the field with Ivy tokens and locking Yusei into defense mode. But she's not done. She summons her rose tentacles and kicks off a synchronized beatdown that, just to be clear, causes real damage. The crowd starts collectively losing its mind, but Yusei, unshaken as ever, brings out his Junk Warrior and counters with Junk Barrage, dishing out damage like it's morning greetings. And here comes the crowd's hypocrisy in full display. They wanted the witch to bleed, but now they're cheering like a fan club, humanity being, well, humanity. Akiza draws Black Rose Dragon, ready to turn the field into ashes. But Yusei, sharper than a game tutorial, had already set everything up. He tributes his junk warrior to summon, who else? The legendary Stardust Dragon. Mid-duel, an unscheduled heart-to-heart breaks out. Yusei throws it in Akiza's face. She doesn't hate others, she hates herself. Sayer basically taught her to live in full emotional override mode. Akiza unleashes the devastating Black Rose Gale, ready to wipe the field clean. But Yusei activates Victim Sanctuary, sacrificing his dragon to shield them both from the blast. Akiza's mind short-circuits. Why is he protecting her? Yusei doesn't miss the chance to crack her armor. If you love hurting others so much, why are you crying? That's it. Her mask shatters faster than glass in a toddler's hand. In one last desperate scream, Akiza draws Cosmic Blast, but the emotional overload breaks her from the inside out. Game over. Yusei wins the Fortune Cup, but Sayer, ever the manipulative villain, swoops in, throws her in the Uber, and vanishes before Yusei can finish his free therapy session. Tension fills the stadium. All 4 signers are gathered, and it feels like even the gods are holding their breath. Yusei quickly realizes this meeting was no accident. He tries to slip away, but Goodwin pulls a classic political move, emotional blackmail. He's holding Yusei's friends hostage. Goodwin lays it all out. This was all a trap. And the bait? None other than Jack Atlas. The guy who, 2 years ago, seduced by the dream of becoming the king, betrayed everyone, stole the Stardust Dragon, and fled to New Domino City. Classic combo, emotional blackmail, plus the kidnapping of Raleigh. Now, in the present, Jack is trying to make amends. He frees the hostages and challenges Yusei to a fair duel. Well, almost fair. The duel begins. Yusei draws Shield Wing, but Jack's not here to play around. He summons Twin Sword Marauder, who can attack twice per turn. Then, Jack revives Dark Tinker with powerful Rebirth, boosts its level, and bam! He summons Red Dragon Archfiend, the baddest dragon in town. At the height of his arrogance, Jack makes it crystal clear. He sacrificed everything. His home, his friends, his pride, all for the crown of the king. Red Dragon Archfiend isn't messing around. He obliterates Junk Warrior with a move straight out of a fighting game. Absolute power force. But Yusei isn't giving up just yet. He plays Descending Lost Star to bring Junk Warrior back from the grave, then draws Hyper Synchron and summons Stardust Dragon once more. The Clash of Dragons unleashes such an overwhelming surge of energy that even the universe throws in the towel. The Crimson Dragon, tired of just being a hologram, manifests physically, opens a dimensional portal, and sends both duelists to a cosmic rave with the ancient signers. There, they get a spoiler for the apocalypse. Satellite being torn apart by a giant spider. That's right, if normal spiders are scary, imagine one the size of a city block. Even after the vision, Jack keeps charging forward. He attacks, activates End of the Storm, and wipes the field, but Yusei won't let it slide. He sacrifices Stardust Dragon to negate the effect. On the next turn, Jack tries to finish things with Meteor Stream and Crimson Fire, but Yusei draws Shining Silver Force and takes out the traps. Then comes the moment. Final attack. Stardust Dragon doubles its attack to 5,000. The move, Shooting Sonic, lands clean and destroys Red Dragon Archfiend. The Crimson Dragon sends them back to the stadium like it's saying, "Well done, kids, you made it." Jack, defeated, realizes he didn't lose to Yusei. He lost to his own pride. Yusei is crowned champion of the Fortune Cup, the first king to ever rise from Satellite. Yusei barely crowns himself the new king of duels, and he's already dodging the press like a celebrity evading TMZ. He rushes into an underground hideout with Luna and Leo because apparently being famous now comes with stealth mode. But of course, gossip reporter Carly isn't far behind, more desperate for a scoop than Perez Hilton on caffeine. What feels like a special episode of Urban Legends kicks off when Yusei crosses paths with a duelist who looks like he crawled straight out of the shadows. And this guy isn't playing around. He's got something called Dark Synchro, basically a hacked version of the rules that lets him summon monsters with negative levels. That's right, negative. Math just walked out crying. The star of the show, Frozen Fitzgerald, a beast that basically says, "Go ahead, destroy me. I'll come back stronger than credit card debt." But before vanishing into the darkness, the villain drops a bombshell. "I'm a dark signer, and I'm going to turn Satellite to ashes." Sometime later, we meet Carly, our favorite gossip queen, who just happened to be in the right place at the right time. With her zoom set to max, filming everything, she finds out the duelist was Grady, a total nobody from the hood who, post-duel, goes back to being just Grady. No mark, no memories, nothing. Basically basically just another Monday for him. That's when Goodwin decides to drop the signer's Wikipedia page on the table. The beef? A 5,000-year-old war between light dragons and some underworld gods who thrive on toxic energy. And guess what? If the signers lose, it's apocalypse mode on, and the planet turns into a hellish spin-off. To make things worse, fake news starts spreading in satellite. It's the Crimson Dragon's fault, shout the local haters. And Yusei? He pulls the classic, let me go take care of something real quick, totally ignoring the fact he might be heading straight to his own funeral. Crow bursts onto the scene, kicking down doors and snatching loot. After all, a modern-day Robin Hood doesn't use a bow. He rides a turbocharged D-wheel and wields a Blackwing deck. This guy does parkour across rooftops, dodges the cops, and even throws in a riding duel during his escape. Sure, he steals, but it's all for a good cause. He gives everything away to the group of orphans he looks after. Meanwhile, Goodwin's back at it with another one of his TED Talks on ancient lore. Dragons once sealed away an evil god in Nazca, and, surprise, that god just got added to the Dark Signer's shopping cart. If they win, well, better check your life insurance policy. You know that friend who disappears for ages and suddenly shows up out of nowhere? Yeah. Yusei runs into Kalin, former leader of Team Satisfaction. Yep, that was really the name of their gang. Creativity was thriving back then. But this time, Kalin's back, Dark Signer edition. And no, he didn't come back for coffee and a friendly catch-up. He came for a riding duel on the highway to hell, complete with flames, geoglyphs, and the lovely aroma of sulfur. Kalin calls Yusei a traitor, pounds his chest and yells, "You destroyed my life," just your typical heartwarming reunion. The duel goes from ugly to monstrous. Kalin activates his handless combo mode, dueling with an empty hand and using his graveyard like a playground. Yusei tries to keep up, pulls out every trick he can, but let's be real, it's not working. Kalin isn't here to mess around. He brings out Earthbound Immortal Kappa Kapu, a towering abomination that basically says, your monster, irrelevant. Your traps, laughable. This thing attacks straight across dimensions, and physics can take a hike. It doesn't turn into a funeral only because Yusei's D-wheel decides to break down again. Pretty sure he bought it off Wish. And then Yusei wakes up all busted in Martha's orphanage. Rally, Blitz, Tank, and the old crew pull off a crazy mission, dragging the broken D-wheel on their backs, dealing with thieves, cops, and plain bad luck. Blister shows up in the middle of the night and saves everyone. Martha, the fierce foster mom, drops the classic scolding, "Stop thinking you have to fix everything on your own." While Yusei is out on his usual hardcore adventures, Luna and Leo are enjoying chill mode at the mansion. Luna, going through a midlife crisis at age 10, wants to prove she's a signer. The twins try to team up with Akiza Izinski, but Sayer, the culty startup boss of the Arcadia movement, is basically a psychic version of a toxic CEO. Sayer kidnaps the siblings for a round of X-Men Saw Edition, testing to see if they've got psychic powers. In the middle of the madness, Leo summons the Power Tool Dragon, basically the Leroy Merlin version of a dragon, the same one from her sister's dream. Despite the awesome duel, Sayer shrugs it off with a useless, and promptly throws Luna into the psychic duelist friend zone. Carly figures the best way to investigate a suspicious psychic cult is by becoming a janitor, because of course, no creepy secret society would ever suspect the new cleaning lady snooping through classified files. The result? She uncovers that the Arcadia movement isn't just weird, it's straight up criminal, responsible for kidnappings and child disappearances across Domino City. Naturally, Sayer finds out about the break-in, and like any totally stable cult leader, he settles the matter with a deadly psychic duel. Oh, and mid-duel, he casually drops a bombshell. That big shot Goodwin. Turns out he's actually from Satellite, the poor district he spent his career pretending doesn't exist. Carly fights valiantly with her fairy-themed deck, which tries its best, but let's be real, it's kinda hard to win when your opponent can blast you with psychic energy. And yes, Carly loses and dies, just like that. But not for long, because Misty shows up in the casual afterlife and drops this. "Congrats, girl. You've been chosen by the god of death. Wanna come be a dark signer with us?" Next thing you know, Carly's back. New tattoo, dark gothic energy, and now officially one of the bad guys. If there's one thing Yugioh loves more than dueling, it's family drama. Akiza, the queen of emotional meltdowns, faces Misty, who pretty much blames her for her brother's death. And, like any good accusation in this series, it's based on, "I saw him near one of your duels and then he vanished." Right, makes perfect sense. Meanwhile, Sayer makes his grand return, because anime villains have more lives than a cat. He goes head to head with Carly, now in full dark mode, in a clash so intense it literally shakes the city. Why? Because both summon earthbound immortals, demonic gods so friendly they make a kaiju look like a kitten. Spoiler alert, Sayer finally gets what's coming to him, crushed under the weight of his own arrogance, and an evil fairy. Akiza witnesses it all, and starts to realize that the Dark Signers aren't just playing around. They're here to hit the reset button on humanity. Jack shows up at the end just to crank up the tragedy, finding Carly's glasses and realizing, yep, things went went south. Just when it seemed like therapy might finally start working, Yusei finds out that good old Uncle Roman, yes, that Roman, Goodwin's brother, was basically the intern who hit the wrong button on the Moment reactor 17 years ago and blew up half the planet. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was, terrorism. While this revelation drops, a completely irresponsible number of orphaned kids are trapped in the middle of a flaming geoglyph. Of course, because child safety is a fairy tale in Domino City. Rally, the group's lovable mascot, gets possessed and forced to duel Yusei in a scene that's basically a slap in the face to the concept of a happy childhood. In the most tragic plot twist since The Lion King, Rally sacrifices himself to destroy the evil giant spider, saving everyone but losing his own life in the process. To top off the sadness combo, Martha, their adoptive mother figure, dies too. Yusei loses it and swears the Dark Signers are going down. Luna and Leo decide that pretending to be sorcerers is a brilliant plan to save the spirit world, and it actually works for about 5 minutes, until Zeman sees right through them. Seriously, the guy kidnapped the ancient fairy dragon and acts like it's totally fine. In the middle of the chaos, Luna pulls off the impossible with her power tool dragon, basically a duct tape and spare parts robot, and nearly wins. Nearly. Because then comes Divac, another Dark Signer with his earthbound immortal Kusilu, which is basically a soul-sucking black hole. In the end, Tarunka, the cutest spirit in the whole show, uses his last bit of mana to send Luna back to the real world. This is where nostalgia hits like a punch to the gut. The duel that should have happened years ago is finally going down. Yusei versus Colin. Two former buddies now settling things, not with fists, but with cards. The whole beef stems from Colin believing Yusei betrayed him when he got arrested. Spoiler, he didn't. But grudges don't need to make sense, right? Colin brings out the 100 Eyes dragon. The duel is a roller coaster of flashbacks, emotional gut punches, and overpowered cards. And we're here for all of it, barely holding back the tears and the popcorn. Alright, brace yourself. Here comes a serious plot twist. Colin finds out that everything he believed was a lie. Turns out, Yusei actually tried to turn himself in to save Colin. Yep, the guy did everything he could for his friend and still got branded a traitor. Life's not fair. When Colin summons his earthbound immortal, Kapak Apu, it looks like everything's about to go down the drain. But then, classic protagonist move. Yusei gathers the power of all the signers, pulls a majestic dragon out of nowhere, and summons Majestic Star Dragon, basically a deluxe DLC version of Stardust Dragon. The beatdown is so brutal that even the earthbound immortal starts questioning if it's worth going on. Yusei wins, and deep down, Colin always knew he never truly hated that hard-headed Yusei. Final boss mode, engaged. Yusei climbs up to the momentum reactor for a showdown with, guess who? That's right, Rex Goodwin, the ultimate villain of all villains. And here comes the bombshell, the accident that wiped out the city, orchestrated by Goodwin himself, all under orders from Yliaster. This guy's completely unhinged. He summons the evil giant spider once again and nearly takes Yusei out. Oh, and get this, Yusei was down to 50 life points. A sneeze would have finished him, but hey, this is Yugioh, baby. With the power of friendship on his side, Yusei brings out Stardust Dragon, takes down the villain, and saves the day. But not without a price. Goodwin warns them that the true king of the underworld is on his way. At long last, Akiza decides to confront her trauma, her inner demons, and of course Misty, now turned into a Dark Signer, fueled by that classic villain motivation. Someone lied to me, so now the whole world must burn. Misty is absolutely convinced that Akiza killed her brother Tilby, because, well, the script said so. But then, in a delicious plot twist, it turns out the true puppet master behind it all was none other than Sayer, the top-tier charlatan, head of the Arcadia movement, and a brainwashing expert with a PhD in manipulation. The truth comes out thanks to Yusei, who crashes the duel with a speakerphone call that drops the hottest key of the season, outing Sayer for the fraud he is. And for some poetic karmic justice, Sayer is devoured by none other than the very earthbound immortal he thought he had under control. Akiza, now with a conscience cleaner than a bank queue after 4 p.m., decides not just to win the duel, but to save Misty by taking down Kakaraya with that slit damage reflection combo. But of course, because this anime never lets anyone catch a break, a new giant shadow looms on the horizon. If this show teaches us anything, it's that things can always get worse. If you thought Rex Goodwin was just another weird bureaucrat, congratulations, you were dead wrong. The man pulls his surprise and reveals that in addition to being a signer, he's also a Dark Signer. Yep, he basically decided to play for both teams. He rips off his own brother Roman's arm, steals his mark, and now wants to become a god. That's right, his plan is as simple as it is insane. Defeat the signers, sacrifice everyone to the king of the underworld, and then fuse the power of darkness and light to become the Thanos of the dueling universe. Yusei, Jack, and Crow take one look at all this and go, let's do it, and agree to a 3-on-1 duel on the Condor Geoglyph. They each start with 4,000 life life points, while Rex begins with 12,000, because balance is apparently just a theoretical concept. Mid-duel, Rex busts out Sun Dragon Inti and Moon Dragon Quilla, because really, if you can summon 2 divine dragons in the same duel, who are you not to? Just when you thought Rex had already gone full villain, he pulls out Viracocha Raska, the most broken, earthbound immortal in the game. And what does this cheerful little monster do? It drops your opponent's life points to 1. That's right, 1. Crow, being the ultimate ride or die friend, steps in with a classic "I got this," activates life exchange, and takes the hit himself, dropping to a single lonely life point but saving Yusei in the process. In the height of desperation, Crow still manages to activate the Blackwing Bombardment trap card, rigging the field with a bomb, and basically leaving behind a note in his will: use this, it'll come in handy. Meanwhile, Jack does what he does best, gets mad. He summons Red Dragon Archfiend and charges in, only to get shut down when Rex unleashes his Evil Dragon combo that blocks any direct attacks. And to rub salt in the wound, Rex throws Jack's past as a selfish king right in his face. But Jack, now the team's official motivational speaker, delivers a redemption speech straight out of a sports movie, proving that yes, he's now part of the Chaos Crew. We've reached the final boss. Jack and Crow are practically zombies, hanging on with just 1 life point each, and who's left to finish the job? The protagonist, of course. Goodwin, at the peak of his god-complex arrogance, thinks he's about to steamroll everyone, but then, Ancient Fairy Dragon appears to shield Jack, proving that even dragons have more loyalty than most humans. That's when Yusei realizes true strength doesn't come from going solo, it comes from your crew. Using the trap card Crow left behind, Stardust Dragon basically turns into a full-on war machine and obliterates Sun Dragon Inti. The turning point, Yusei drops that kind of speech that even makes villains tear up. Rex, you don't want to be a god. You just wanted to fight alongside your brother again. And guess what? It works. Rex regains the Crimson Dragon mark, and finally, all the marks unite. Then comes the apotheosis. Yusei summons Majestic Star Dragon, negates Viracocha Raska's effect, overpowered cheat card, and lands the final blow that ends the madness. The Goodwin brothers have a heartfelt moment of reconciliation, sacrifice themselves together, and the king of the Netherworld is defeated. The city finally comes together as one, the Daedalus Bridge is completed, and our heroes ride off on their D-wheels like they just hit the lottery. 6 months later, peace, love, rebuilding, and of course, a meteor crashes from the sky, because the universe never lets you off easy. Out of it step 3 very shady-looking guys, Primo, Lester, and Jacob. They're the directors of Yliaster, the new threat in town, and they're carrying a stone tablet that's clearly not for playing dominoes. Meanwhile, a duelist called Ghost starts roaming Neo Domino at night, challenging D-wheelers to duels where the losers go straight to the hospital. No luck. Number 200 recovery points. Ketsu, thinking he's man enough to handle this without the signer's help, goes up against Ghost and gets completely wrecked. The monster, Mech Lord Emperor Whizzle, a card with an ability that'd make any Synchro monster fan cry in the shower. It absorbs the opponent's synchros. Message received. Synchros? Don't even think about it. And just like that, the new art kicks off with a strong taste of impending doom. So the gossip's hot. Tetsu just got wrecked. What happens next? Yusei and Jack go full flying kick mode after this guy called Ghost, because if you mess with one of them, you mess with all. Unless it's a bar fight, then it's every man for himself. The duel kicks off, and, of course, there's a twist. Ghost pulls out Necklord Emperor Whizzle, a tech monstrosity with a Megazord complex, and the moment Yusei summons Stardust Dragon, guess what? The robot snatches it like it's stealing neighbor's Wi-Fi and gains 2,500 attack. Not cool, not for anyone. Then Ghost starts his crazy TED talk about how Synchro monsters are the downfall of humanity. Meanwhile, Yusei's hanging on like a rent check at the end of the month, blocking hits with duct tape and hope. But then, the Cider's marks light up because hey, a good script knows when to serve that sweet fan service. At the peak of the chaos, Yusei pulls out a Majestic Dragon, snatches Stardust back, and pulls off a Synchro summon worthy of a World Cup final. Majestic Star Dragon hits the field, wipes Whizzle's effects, blasts it to bits, and leaves Ghost with no Wi-Fi, no dragon, and 0 dignity. But then, plot twist, Ghost wasn't even human. It turned out to be just a riding roid, a dual robot hacked straight from Sector Security's own systems, which begs the question, who did it and why? Out of nowhere, a mysterious D-wheeler shows up and drops this bomb. With moves like that, pal, you wouldn't even beat my grandma, let alone the Ghost. Challenge accepted, a street race straight out of Fast and Furious, because clearly, life isn't complicated enough already. If Yusei makes it through the twists and turns, the stranger promises to teach him how not to end up a Synchro popsicle in the hands of the Mech Lords. The race is on. Moves so wild they'd make Brian O'Connor break a sweat. And when the mysterious D-wheeler sees Yusei isn't just a pretty face on a D-wheel, the real schooling begins. wins. He proves Whistle may be strong, but it's slow. It can only absorb one Synchro per turn. Then comes the real shocker. Synchro summon on your opponent's turn. Yup, cue the legendary cry, Axel Synchro. And with that, Tet Genus Blade Blaster hits the field. So broken it feels like a glitch in a badly balanced game. Yusei tries to strike back with Drill Warrior, gets close, but takes a hard dodge to the face. Blade Blaster activates its effect, vanishes from the field, and reappears later, like that friend who dips before the check and comes back just in time for dessert. The duel ends with Yusei emerging victorious, but not without a bold promise. We'll meet again. Now, all that's left is figuring out how to use it without blowing yourself up. Meanwhile, at the Yliaster HQ, the three directors are more lost than your grandpa in a WhatsApp group chat. Primo, the most unhinged of the bunch, is losing it because no one wants to fast-track their plans. Then, bam, Meteor number 2 crashes into the city. At the school where twins Leo and Luna attend, Lester makes quite the entrance. He's like that new student who seems sweet, but is behind 80% of the school's incident reports. He's charming, a duel academy champion, a dueling prodigy, basically the kind of guy that makes every protagonist break into a cold sweat. He wins Luna over easily. Leo, of course, is suspicious from the start, and rightfully so. After dueling and defeating even the school janitor, Lester invites Luna to his mansion, and you guessed it, it's a trap. There, he gifts a shiny new duel board, except, plot twist, it's a setup. As the duel kicks off, Lester summons Mech Lord Emperor Skeel, which, shocker, absorbs Ancient Fairy Dragon, and turns into a 4,300 attack behemoth. Crimson Dragon swoops in with some VIP backup, saving Leo from certain doom. But Lester, he couldn't care less. And the duel's grand finale? A total plot twist. The mansion vanishes, and more. No one remembers Lester. Not a soul. He vanished faster than your paycheck on payday. Primo, fed up and clearly skipping therapy, kidnaps Yusei for a duel inside security's secret facility. But it's not just any duel, my friend. It's a duel plus a ticking time bomb. And his opponent, a hellish robot with a deck designed for one thing only, not letting Yusei breathe. Lock Dragon, level limit area B, summon pass, counterforce. Translation, if you thought your buddy who only plays Exodia was toxic, you haven't seen anything yet. Meanwhile, Jack, Crow, and Bruno are trying to bust in and save their bro, only to realize the door won't open unless he wins. Jack, playing the discount motivational coach, drops this gem. As long as there's a 1% chance, we've got 99% faith. The robot activates Solemn Judgment, slashing its own life points in half, and Yusei spots his opening. He unleashes Earthquake Giant plus Panic Wave, clears the field, and brings out that Synchro monster we all know and love, Stardust Dragon. One attack, one explosion, and Yusei makes it out seconds before the factory goes barbecue mode. Primo watches, scribbles notes in his little evil planner, and thinks, alright, I definitely underestimated this bastard, and that's that. But hold up a second, I've got something different to tell you. In Domino City, everything was going pretty smoothly, thank you very much. Yusei Fudo was just living his main character life, dueling here and there, fixing up his D-wheel, sipping some coffee, and thinking peace was here to stay. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Out of nowhere, this masked lunatic shows up, riding a D-wheel that looks like a transformer on a testosterone overdose. The guy doesn't waste time with chit-chat. He rolls in and challenges Yusei to a riding duel with stakes like, if you lose, you don't just lose the duel, you lose your dignity, your hope, and even your Stardust Dragon. And guess what? The unthinkable happens. Stardust Dragon, this icon, this legend, gets sucked into a blank card the intruder pulls straight from his sleeve. Literally, the guy throws out a line worthy of a soap opera villain. Fall into ruin along with your era, and poof, vanishes. The real problem? Reality starts vanishing with him. The city fades away like a politician's promise. Crimson Dragon, tired of this nonsense, rips open just when all seems lost. Dramatic entrance. Yusei crashes through the fabric of reality on his D-wheel, with Stardust Dragon blazing right behind. Because yeah, Stardust decided it wasn't about to be some loser villain's collectible. Paradox, yep, the villain has a name now, decides he's wasting time and bails, dropping one more zinger. You're going down too. Later, losers. Yusei and Jaden do that classic shonen pact. Let's save the world together, bro. And off they go, hunting down that madman. And where do they go? To the past, of course. Domino City in its golden days. Yugi's just vibing, casually dueling in the tournament, and Pegasus is handing out prizes like he's Santa Claus for duelists. Until surprise, Paradox shows up dropping real dragons in the middle of the city. Literally, dragons burst out of cards and start tearing the place apart like it's Black Friday at the mall. Yugi's grandpa and Pegasus get slammed. That's when everyone realizes realizes if Pegasus dies here, it's game over for Duel Monsters, for the timeline, for the franchise, for those collectible figurines on your shelf. Yugi gets pulled 30 minutes into the past and teams up with Yusei and Jaden to throw hands with Paradox. Paradox, straight out of a post-apocalyptic future where even hope got cancelled, pulls the classic wannabe philosopher villain card. Duel Monsters is the root of humanity's downfall, so I'll erase this game from existence. Naturally, the trio just stares him down and says in unison, "Get lost." Paradox drops a deck that would make any collector sell a kidney: Malefic Cyber End Dragon, Malefic Rainbow Dragon, and Malefic Stardust Dragon. All stolen, corrupted monsters from different timelines. Bold, stylish, shameless. Yusei takes a beating. Junk Gardna turns into a shield but gets slapped with a 4000 attack hit like a mom's backhand. Then Jaden shows up out of nowhere and pulls off an impossible fusion. Neos plus Junk Gardna equals Neos Knight. Takes down two of the big guys with pure swagger. Paradox slaps down his trap card, Malefic Paradox Dragon. He revives Stardust Dragon, now freelancing for the forces of evil, and shuts down everyone's offense. Enter the myth, the king, the legend, Yugimoto. He pulls Dark Magician, whips out a sick combo, snatches Stardust back, and wipes the floor with Paradox. Just when you think it's over, guess what? Of course it's not. Paradox pulls his final card, Malefic Paradigm Shift, and in a move Freud himself couldn't explain, he fuses with his final monster, Malefic Truth Dragon, rocking an absurd 5000 attack. The Paradox man even brings in Malefic Blue Eyes and Malefic Red Eyes to the party, because a good villain never knows when to quit. The heroes are left with just 500 life points, every monster in the graveyard, and hope dead for the third time. And then comes the miracle of the script. Kuribo, yes, that Kuribo, ends up saving everyone. Against all odds, the tiny furball pulls off the ultimate rescue. Just as things seem hopeless, the real Stardust Dragon returns, blasting through the fake copy like it was never even real. Jaden and Yugi team up for the kind of combo that Konami should have banned years ago. One of those game-breaking, dimension-shattering plays. Together, they boost Stardust's attack all the way up to 10,000. Then comes the finishing move, Shooting Spiral Sonic. It lands straight on Paradox, right in the face, the gut, and every form of ID he's ever owned. The villain vanishes into the air, left questioning whether he made a mistake or just ended up in the wrong script entirely. And just like that, the multiverse of Duel Monsters is saved. Domino City returns to normal. Pegasus hands out promo cards to the kids, and Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei seal the deal with a handshake so epic it cracks space and time. With the job done, each hero returns to their own era. Back in our normal timeline, our beloved Yusei receives a desperate letter asking for help, and like every proper shonen protagonist, he ignores all the flashing red flags that scream Scooby-Doo trap and heads straight for a place called Crash Town. Spoiler alert, it's basically a branch of hell, with more duels and even less dignity. There, two gangs rule everything through their decks. On one side, the Malcolm family, led by a textbook narcissist. On the other, the Ramon group, commanded by a morally questionable tactician. The rules? Lose a duel, and congrats, you're now a full-time mine worker. Smile, you've just been endorsed on the LinkedIn of the damned. And guess who shows up? Kallen. Yes, the former Dark Signer, ex-Team Satisfaction member, and now emotionally dead inside. His mental state? Think reality show contestant in week 3. His strategy? The infamous handless combo, because even his cards prefer to keep their distance. And of course, Malcolm, whose IQ must be in the negatives, thinks it's a brilliant idea to test Yusei. The result? Yusei wipes out 3 duelists at once without breaking a sweat, using Nitro Warrior and Armory Arm. The guy basically activated his main character mode. Plot twist alert, Colin's gone freelance for the rival gang. Yep, he's dueling non-stop, like he's hoping someone will finally take him out for good. Local orphan kids, West and Nico, watch him like he's some kind of hero. Yusei finally faces Kallen in a duel that's basically a soap opera showdown. The vibe? Pure tension. Kallen opens strong with Infernity Randomizer, because apparently he's living on RNG mode now. Yusei tries to hit the emotional brakes by summoning Max Warrior, basically that one friend who jumps in to break up a fight at a party. Mid-card brawl, Kallen drops a whole tragic monologue. Turns out he became a Dark Signer, tried to kill Yusei, somehow lived, got guilt-tripped into oblivion, and now just wants to be deleted from the system. Real healthy stuff. Plot twist within a plot twist. Kallen's duel disc has a bomb strapped to it. That's right, Ramon, a guy about as charming as a parking ticket, rigged it so Kallen would explode if he tried to lose. This is duel to the death taken to the extreme extreme. Colin summons Infernity Doom Dragon, and if you thought that name was just for show, think again. But since Yusei is basically the uncredited scriptwriter of this anime, he pulls a trick, brings out Stardust Dragon, smashes Colin's dragon, and of course, wins. Not even a moment to breathe. Enter Lawton, Malcolm's younger brother, who's not only a full-blown psychopath, but also packing an arsenal that would make any GTA game blush. The kids, West and Nico, decide that being useful is better than waiting for a miracle, so they sneak into the mines to help Yusei. Meanwhile, their father sacrifices himself to save everyone, because this anime never misses a chance to crush your heart. Lawton, the rotten-hearted ogre he is, kicks off a riding duel right in the middle of the mine, unleashing Gatling Ogre and its variants with names that sound like DLCs from a first-person shooter. Yusei's in deep trouble, on the brink of losing. But guess what? Colin, moved by the kid's father's sacrifice, finally snaps out of it and steps up. Escape, only partially successful, because Lawton, that mid-level boss wannabe, triggers the explosive wall, blows everything up, and walks off thinking he killed everyone. Of course, he's dumb enough not to check for bodies. He heads back to the city, scams everyone, renames the place Lawton Town because Egomaniac doesn't even begin to cover it, and thinks he's won. Spoiler alert, he hasn't. Yusei and Colin, alive, are already plotting their revenge. Colin realizes he doesn't have to die anymore, but he does have to drag Lawton straight to hell. Lawton, now the ultimate megalomaniac, forces the townspeople to duel each other. West and Nico are about to be used as hostages until the roar of a D-wheel is heard. Who is it? Colin and Yusei. They challenge Lawton to a duel, who blatantly cheats by starting with 10 cards in hand. Gatling Ogre hits the field and Colin survives with 0 life points. Yes, 0. Because now, he's literally a dual zombie. The plan? Colin takes a brutal beating, forcing Lawton to burn through his resources, while Yusei sets up a counterstrike with Justice Bringer. Nitro Warrior hits the field. Stardust Dragon is already standing tall. Infernity Doom Dragon is blasting away. The battle's so intense, it feels like the finals. With a crooked referee, Lawton, in a panic, pulls out Long Barrel Ogre, a card that basically shoots at its own shadow. But Yusei, as always, protects Colin with Skill Twist, proving that friendship trumps even a machine gun. Just when Lawton thinks he's got it, he activates Back Attack Ambush, but Yusei shuts it down, straight to his face. And who shows up at the last second? Crow and Jack, swooping in to save the kids and the entire showdown. The final duel turns into a game of Russian roulette with Infernity Doom Slinger. Lawton bets the next card isn't a monster. Plot twist, it is. Colin wins through sheer grit and a little deck manipulation. Crash Town is finally freed. Colin decides he's done chasing death. It's time to rebuild the city. Team Satisfaction parts ways. Mission accomplished. Buckle up, folks, because the tournament nobody knew they needed is finally here. The World Riding Duel Grand Prix. Yep, Neo Domino City is buzzing like a Black Friday clearance sale. And honestly, even more hype than the Fortune Cup. And to kick things off with a bang, we've got a real heavyweight showdown. Team 5D's versus Team Unicorn. This isn't just a duel, it's UFC on wheels. The game plan was simple. Jack starts, then Akiza, and Yusei anchors at the end. But well, plans only work until the duel begins. Andre, the lead duelist from Team Unicorn, goes full throttle from the get-go. Basically an overboost move that blasts you ahead, but leaves you crawling like a compact car uphill. Then comes the twist. They're running something called Operation D, a strategy more classified than a social security number on the dark web. Jack, ever the humble king, wastes no time summoning his Red Dragon Archfiend, but Andre baits him beautifully with Unihorn Familiar and counters with Different Dimension Barrier. Lost Force, bouncing 3000 damage right back in Jack's royal face. Well played, king. You just got wrecked by your own monster. Think it's over? Think again. Andre drops Thunder Unicorn onto the field, brings back his fallen steed, and finishes stomping all over Jack's flaming lizard. Even after pulling a comeback to revive Red Dragon Archfiend, Jack eats another counter via Dimension Trap. The verdict? Jack's out, utterly humiliated, and with confidence lower than rural Wi-Fi signal. With Jack down for the count, who's left? Akiza. And hey, she gave it her all. But honestly, if dueling required a driver's license, she would have flunked the test on the first curve. She tried, attacked, defended, and lost. Stardust Dragon goes back to someone who knows how to handle it, Yusei, and now things get crazy. It's Yusei against 3, Andre plus Breo and John, both untouched, both out for blood. But Yusei doesn't quit. He uses Max Warrior and Stardust to take Andre out. The guy goes down, but not without drama, because even in the graveyard, Thunder Unicorn makes one last stand just to be a nuisance. Next up, Breo, aka that guy no one remembers. Never dueled before, so you'd think, easy win. Wrong. The guy's a deck milling machine. He summons Voltic Bicorn, triggers a self-destruct effect, and bam, 7 of Yusei's cards go straight to the graveyard. He's not winning on the field, he's winning in your head. And then the cherry on top, End of the Storm is useless because Breo couldn't care less about Stardust. fast. His strategy? If you run out of cards, it's game over. Remember Team Unicorn? Yeah, they woke up in the hospital without a clue what hit them. All they knew was that their D-wheel froze, and the pavement met them faster than expected. And who shows up next? Team Catastrophe, also known as Team Trouble. These guys look like they stepped straight out of a horror flick. Nicholas, Herman, and Hans. Real charmers. If your definition of charming includes supernatural sabotage, turns out the culprit has a name, Hook the Hidden Knight. This thing isn't just a duel monster, it's basically a holographic Dementor dragging D-wheels straight to the scrapyard. Crow's Blackbird froze because of it, and the Unicorn cruise rides went down the same way. Coincidence? Ask Scooby-Doo. Then comes Crow, all fired up, determined to show he's learned from his past mistakes. Spoiler alert, he hasn't. Herman plays Hook, activates its effect, and a shadow bursts from the field trying to yank Crow right under the tire. Solid Vision just turned into Solid Assassination. That's when they find out these shadow cards, they're not just overpowered, they're literally cursed. Just when you thought things couldn't get any crazier, Primo crashes into the scene, and he doesn't just show up. He fuses with his D-wheel, turns into a hellish Megazord, and drops the bomb. He's one of the 3 emperors of Yliaster, and he wants to wipe out Neo Domino, just because. His toy of choice? Mech Lord Emperor Weisel, a custom-built monstrosity designed to juice up on Synchro monsters. Everything Stardust and company throw at him, he absorbs it. Yusei puts up a fight, manages to chip away at Weisel, but then Primo activates Divergence, rerouting every attack like he's playing poker with a royal flush. And then comes the kicker. The entire city blacks out. Power outage. Akiza loses her psychic abilities. Surveillance goes down. Thought not paying the electric bill was a problem. Welcome to the new Neo Domino. When Primo finally absorbs Stardust Dragon and boosts Weisel's attack to 5,000, Yusei pulls a bold move. He uses Rescue Warrior to snatch Stardust back right in Primo's face. Then he teams up Stardust with Formula Synchron for that glimmer of hope combo. That might just work, or not. To cap it all off, Primo throws some philosophical shade. You're nothing but a puppet of past tragedies. And Yusei, he answers with action. Because around here, drama only happens between synchros. And if you think that's the end of it, nope. Primo activates Magic Law and says, Yusei, no spells on my field until my next turn. Basically, he cut the duel's Wi-Fi. But then comes the soap opera moment. Yusei digs deep and pulls off the ultimate combo. Friendship, hope, and full-on shonen protagonist energy. He brings back Stardust Dragon with Rescue Warrior, revives Formula Synchron with Necro Linker, and boom, Clear Mind activates. And during the opponent's turn, because yes, we're doing that now, he pulls off the impossible, a defensive Axel Synchro. Behold the god of hope, the Machine Slayer, the plot-armored symbol of friendship, Shooting Star Dragon, with 3,300 attack and an aura that says, just try and stop me. With Shooting Star Dragon on the field, Yusei kicks into revenge mode. Primo, who thought he was playing Yugioh, on easy mode, gets smacked by the most broken ability in the universe. Shooting Star looks at the top 5 cards of the deck and can attack once for every tuner it finds. The result? They're all tuners, because of course, the main character's deck has rigged RNG. 5 attacks later, Make Lord Emperor Weisel is reduced to scrap metal. Primo doesn't just lose the duel, he literally gets tossed aside by his own allies. Friendship in Yliaster is like an internet contract. The moment it fails, they cut you off. And then the bomb drops. Jacob, Lester, and Primo reveal themselves as the 3 emperors of Yliaster. They basically say, we've been controlling the course of human history since fire was discovered. A plot twist straight out of the Illuminati's handbook, complete with Templar DLC. Sherry tries to cash in some old emotional debt. You killed my parents, but gets wrecked so hard she goes home rethinking her entire life. Here's the straight talk. Yliaster wants to destroy Neo Domino City. According to them, the future is doomed because of the moment, the energy source that causes chaos. If Zero Reverse didn't wipe it out in the past, they'll fix it now the old-fashioned way, by nuking everything. Jacob then whips out a stone slab and summons Mechlord Emperor Granel, just to make it clear they've got the tech of 3010 in a world running on 2025. And with a smug smile, they throw down the gauntlet. Want the truth? Win the WRGP. Otherwise, bye-bye. And guess who starts losing it? Jack Atlas. The guy has a nightmare where his own Red Dragon Archfiend tries to turn him into Dragon Chow. And like every stubborn secondary protagonist ever, his solution is, let's go to Peru. Once there, they find Greiger, who ditched his villain life to become the guardian of the Nazca lines. He's basically a mix of shaman, life coach, and spiritual engineer now. But things are off. Animals are dying, people are disappearing, and word around the village is that the Crimson Devil is waking up. The warning is crystal clear. If Jack keeps being all horsepower and no brain, he's going to die by his own hands. Literally. To drive the point home, Greiger sends in his kid brother Max to duel Jack, and surprise, the kid gives a masterclass in strategy. He summons 3 Freedom Birds, locks down Jack's offense, and even reflects Red Dragon Archfiend's power right back at him. The result? Jack gets smacked in the face by his own monster. But Jack's got the spirit of a Brazilian. He doesn't quit, even after realizing that brute force alone is a one-way ticket to defeat. He refuses to change, just because. Pride speaks louder than common sense. If you thought things were bad, buckle up. They're about to get worse. Jack stumbles upon a ravaged village where the only survivor, an old man stuck on repeat like a glitched NPC, keeps mumbling, "Crimson Devil." Then comes the stereotypical cursed item vendor looking guy, the kind who practically oozes, "I'll sell you a haunted ring." And what does he offer Jack? The dumbest deal ever. Duel me. If you win, I'll grant you infinite power. If you lose, your body becomes an Airbnb for the Crimson Devil. Naturally, Jack, a man who's never said no to a bad idea, accepts. Spoiler, it's a trap. Mid-duel, we learn the Crimson Devil is none other than Red Nova, an earthbound immortal so intense even the other immortals kept their distance. The plan possessed Jack. He's the perfect host, arrogant, hot-headed, and hungry for power. The duel feels like Jack's trying to punch smoke. The enemy plays monsters that self-destruct to deal effect damage, spells that block direct attacks, and Jack learns the hard way that brute force doesn't beat effect mechanics. Just when Jack starts showing signs of actual strategic thinking, like swapping monsters to dodge traps, the Crimson Devil goes, "Congrats. Now, you're my puppet." Jack is at rock bottom, just 800 life points left, caught in an endless combo with the evil NPC laughing in his face, like that cousin who cheats at video games and still calls you trash. Every time Jack breathes, he takes damage. Every move he makes, damage. Even when he tries not to die, more damage. But then Jack decides to break the cycle. He activates Extra Valor and reflects effect damage right back, and for the first time in his life, he shows he can do more than just punch his way out of problems. That's when Greiger shows up, because of course there's always someone ready to drop ancient lore mid-duel, and starts telling a 10,000-year-old tale about a signer who turned into a human torch with a legendary burning soul, helping the Crimson Dragon put the Crimson Devil to sleep. And guess what? Jack taps into that spiritual Super Saiyan mode. The man becomes one with the burning soul, and what used to seem like plain stubbornness now fuels his path to victory. Then the Crimson Dragon appears, because yeah, even he realizes it's finally worth helping out. Jack makes an insane move, using Synchro Soldier to temporarily banish Red Dragon Archfiend, dodging the ritual's pull, and on the next turn, he brings it back. Turbo mode engaged. But Jack's not done. He pulls off a double tuning synchro, something even Konami probably didn't know was possible. He combines Creation Resonator, Attack Gainer, and Red Dragon Archfiend to summon the legendary, colossal, and totally broken Red Nova Dragon. And no, this beast doesn't mess around. It hits the field with 5,500 attack, gaining 1,000 for every dead tuner in the graveyard. Perfectly balanced, right? Jack then unleashes his ultimate move, Burning Soul, and wipes that familiar off the board. Ritual obliterated. A break in the chaos. The WRGP preliminaries are put on hold after Yliaster's mess, but because trouble never comes alone, some new challengers show up to stir things up even more. The legendary Team Ragnarok, the very first to take riding duels to a professional level. These guys are like the Beatles of dueling. Haldor, Dragon, and Brodor roll in flaunting the Norse god cards, Odin, Thor, and Loki, literally the most overpowered entities in their deck. They make the Earthbound Immortals look like knockoff cards from a sketchy street vendor. And as if that weren't enough, Team New World, aka Yliaster, registers for the tournament acting like the good guys. And the worst part, they've got the credentials. Champions all over the world, elite dueling villains with global trophies to show for it. Meanwhile, Leo, that sweet kid who always ends up cleaning up everyone's mess, meets Team Sun, a group of country boys who cobbled together a D-wheel using pure desperation and junkyard miracles. Think scrap metal, oil cans, broom handles, and a whole lot of hope. But Ghost, yeah, that Yliaster lunatic, trashed their rig during the prelims. The boys try to play it tough, turning down help, but reality hits hard. No repairs, no tournament, so they cave, half crying, half smiling, and accept Yusei's help. Yusei and Bruno take one look at their D-wheel and hit them with the classic, "This thing shouldn't work," but it does. It's rural engineering, with a coat hanger for suspension, and a pot lid as the steering wheel. Meanwhile, to spice things up, an exhibition duel kicks off. Dragon picks none other than Jack Atlas, God versus King. Jack wastes no time bringing out Red Dragon Archfiend, but Dragon, the man sinks Goldfax of the Nordic Beast with 2 tokens, and summons none other than Thor, Lord of the Aesir. And let's just say, when that beast hits the field, even the Crimson Dragon stirs in the sky. The whole building nearly comes down. The duel gets interrupted. Lucky for the building and the structural engineers. To wrap it all up, with Team Sun's D-wheel fixed, the tournament matchups are announced. And guess what? Team 5D's versus Team Sun in the first round. Life never misses a chance to be ironic. Team Sun is in worse shape than a fridge in the desert. Only Taro remains on the track. Then they unleash the most insane card play in Yu-Gi-Oh history. The strategy to summon summons Zushin the Sleeping Giant, a monstrous card that no one's ever successfully played in an official duel. The plan: keep a level 1 monster on the field for 10 turns. That's right, 10. In the middle of the WRGP, where every turn feels like a battlefield, Crow tries to shut it down, but Taro activates two-pronged attack, forcing Crow to destroy his own monster with guard mines. The crowd, who were laughing at them at first, suddenly starts cheering, because watching madness unfold is always better than a regular duel. In the final stretch, after Crow nearly breaks his own game, Taro sacrifices Key Mace, and bam, out comes the insane, the absurd, the legendary Zushin the Sleeping Giant, starting with 0 attack, but with an effect that lets it steal the opponent's attack and gain an extra 1000. It's flawless. Crow stares, thinks, this can't be right, but it's too late. Zushin grows to 3000 attack, punches Black Winged Dragon into dust, and then Power Throw seals the deal, knocking Crow out of the race. Now it's Yusei's turn to carry the burden. Taro unleashes Zushin against Stardust Dragon, but Yusei counters with Power Shift, dropping Stardust's attack to 0, making Zushin look like a pigeon hitting a brick wall. Taro doesn't back down. He plays Meteor Rain, inflicts piercing damage, and Zushin steamrolls poor Turbo Synchron. But then, with his last breath, Yusei activates Graceful Revival, brings back Tuning Wear, and mid-battle phase uses Urgent Tuning, giving rise to the legendary Formula Synchron. And then, my friend, Clear Mind activates, and Shooting Star Dragon bursts onto the field, soaring high, 3300 attack, glowing like a supernova, and full of swagger. Taro goes for an attack, Shooting Star removes itself from the field, negates the strike, and when it returns, Zushin is left with 0 attack. The shame is real. Taro makes one last gamble with Fool's Dice, rolls the die, hits the mark, and lands 2000 damage, almost taking Yusei out, but it's too late. Yusei activates Monster Baton, shields Shooting Star, and in the next breath, wipes Zushin off the field. In the WRGP semifinals, the showdown now is between Jack and Dragon. The duel kicks off civilly enough, with Thor, Lord of the Aesir, hitting the field with a towering 3500 attack, demolishing Red Dragon Archfiend like it's cracking open a soda can. Thor activates Nordic Relic Mjolnir, letting him attack twice in the same turn, just to make sure. Jack takes so much damage he nearly gets launched off his D-wheel, but then flips the switch to pure stubbornness mode. Burning Soul. He draws 2 tuners, Top Runner and Barrier Resonator, pulls off a double tuning, and brings back the monstrous Red Nova Dragon, now boosted to a staggering 4500 attack. Jack attacks Thor. Dragon counters with Raging Sacred Curse, cutting Red Nova down to 2500 attack, then plays Solemn Authority to lock down any spells or traps on Jack's dragon. The duel turns into a brutal war of attrition. Calmly, Jack tributes Red Nova, activates Burning Rebirth, brings back Red Dragon Archfiend, and then revives Red Nova Dragon right after, now with a chilling 5000 attack. Red Nova Dragon unleashes its Savage Strike, takes down Thor, but Dragon activates his effect. Thor comes back at the end of the turn, ticked off, and slaps Jack with 800 damage just to remind everyone that in real life, nobody walks away from a fight like this unscathed. On top of everything else, life was already rough for Yusei, and as if that weren't enough, Jack got knocked out of the tournament like an amateur without proper training. So who's left? Haldor, the Viking cosplayer turned duelist who storms in flaunting his divine trio. Thor, Loki, and Odin, each more broken than the last. And if you think I'm exaggerating, check this out. Thor shrugs off effects, Loki wrecks traps, and Odin basically throws a shut-up card at any spell or trap trying to mess with the gods' party. Yusei, totally desperate, tries to hold back the Titans with Monster Chain, but Odin just looks, laughs, and cancels it like a bad RSVP. Yusei takes 3 punches to the face, loses all his monsters, and to top it off, gets hit with one of Haldor's motivational monologues, where the guy thinks he's the main character, and starts rambling about Destiny and Yliaster, but Yusei's no fool. If Destiny needs breaking, he's game. He pulls Debris Dragon, mixes it with some random junk, like Cosmic Compass, Quillbolt Hedgehog, and Doppel Warrior, and he fires off a combo worthy of a YouTube tutorial, and summons the majestic, the marvelous, the plot-shattering beast, Majestic Star Dragon. This blinged out version of Stardust Dragon comes in with 3800 attack and a Crimson Dragon seal of approval. Haldor tries to be slick by activating Odin's Eye to peek at Yusei's set card, only to find its Wave Rebound, a trap that, if he tried to negate earlier, would have straight up wiped the 3 gods off the board and dealt enough damage to make the IRS jealous. The result? Stalemate. fight. Everyone's locked and loaded, but no one wants to push the red button. Yusei's had enough, so he goes, time to blow everything up. He summons Majestic Star Dragon, which triggers Wave Rebound, aiming straight at the three gods. Should have been GG easy. Haldor is supposed to take 10,800 damage, but nope. He activates Gjallarhorn. Gjallarhorn kicks off a death countdown. In 3 turns, all of Haldor's monsters vanish, and Yusei gets hit with their total attack to the face. That's just 10,800 damage, nothing major. Then Haldor, now acting like a cross between a hacker and a psychic, uses Odin's Eye to read Yusei's hand, like a teacher catching someone cheating on a test. And here comes the pain. Thor, Loki, Odin, and even a couple of bonus monsters. Jormungandr, the Norse serpent that deals 3,000 damage if switched to attack mode, and Fenrir, the wolf that forces monsters into different battle positions. It's not even a duel anymore. It's a full-on torture simulator. Meanwhile, Yusei's basically an NPC on infinite respawn mode, surviving with Stardust Phantom and a handful of random tokens. But let's be honest, it's getting obvious he's holding on with duct tape and sheer willpower. Gjallarhorn ticks to 2 counters. Spoiler alert, it's not looking good. Yusei's down, literally. Just 1,200 life points left, and the death clock is ticking with that damn ominous tick-tock. He makes a call. It's now or never. He activates Hope for Escape, pays 1,000 life points, draws 3 cards, and clings to that sliver of hope. First move, he slaps Life Gardna onto the field. Then he brings out Different Dimension Sprite, banishing Jormungandr to the void, and then some classic sleight of hand. He tunes Sprite and Gardna to summon Formula Synchron, gaining back around 800 life points. Enter Hacker Mode, Clear Mind, and once again, he pulls off the impossible, Axel Synchro. He summons the legendary Shooting Star Dragon, complete with epic soundtrack, slow motion, and a cinematic spinning camera shot. He checks the top of his deck, 3 tuners. The result, 3 attacks. He takes flight, crushes 2 gods, and Haldor's almost waving the white flag. But the gods resurrect, and Thor, just by existing, deals 800 damage. Yusei's back down to 200 life points. That's right, folks. The man doesn't die. He reloads the humiliation. Final round. Haldor tries to finish it with Tear of the Nordic Champions. He scans Yusei's set card with Odin's Eye, thinking it's checkmate, but nope. Yusei activates Trick Mirror, copies the effect, and throws it right back at Haldor. Result? The gods lose their effects. But Odin still has 4,000 attack. Haldor pushes for the win. Yusei counters. He activates Zero Force. When Shooting Star Dragon leaves the field, every monster with attack equal to or greater than his gets dropped to 0. With the gods neutered, Gjallarhorn tries to deal damage, but 0 times anything is still 0, buddy. Shooting Star Dragon returns for the finishing blow. Haldor swallows his pride, accepts defeat, and in a rare moment of clarity, admits that Yusei's wisdom surpasses even the gods. Who would have thought? We've reached the WRGP finals, and who's holding it down for Team 5D's? None other than Yusei, of course, but the opponents? Not exactly lightweights. Team New World, a trio made up of the Apocalypse interns themselves, Jacob, Primo, and Lester, courtesy of the Yliaster Corporation. Their goal? Wipe out civilization because they didn't like the moment system update. Crow, being the hero he is, gives it his all to keep Blackwing Dragon on the field and passes the torch to Yusei. But there's a catch. Jacob's Mech Lord Emperor Granel is on the field, and it absorbs Synchro monsters. Fun, right? Yusei hits back with Wave Wall, holding off Granel's attack, which is clocking in at around 15,500 attack. But Jacob spoils the party with Attack Cannon, destroys Blackwing Dragon, and Yusei is forced to pull out Shadow Impulse to bring out Stardust Dragon with 0 attack. Looking good? Not quite. And just to make things worse, the trio decides to take everyone on a sightseeing trip through Doom. They show Neo Domino City in ruins. Think Mad Max, Duelist Edition. Then they drop the bombshell. Synchro's summoning is the real villain here. Yep, synchronizing basically equals signing a contract with the Apocalypse. Yusei naturally takes a deep breath and says, "You guys are nuts. Time for a comeback." He summons Mono Synchron, brings out Formula Synchron, activates the legendary Clear Mind, calls forth Shooting Star Dragon, checks his deck, bingo, 5 tuners. Result, 5 attacks. Just enough to turn Granel into scrap metal. With Jacob down, the trio reveals they're not even human, just fragments of a broken soul. And then they merge, literally, forming Aporia, the final boss. And this guy means business. He whips out Mech Lord Astro Mechanical, an evil transformer that not only absorbs Synchro monsters, but also feeds off their attack points. If you're going to be overpowered, might as well go all the way. Meanwhile, chaos erupts in the stadium. Lightning rains down. Everything's being blown to bits, and the crowd runs for their lives. Yusei tries to pull a fast one with Shooting Star Dragon's effect to dodge the hit, but Aporia shuts that play down hard card and snatches those 3,300 attack points like it's a rare trading card. The duel spills out of the stadium and turns into a full-blown GTA chase through the city, dragging innocent civilians into a death lottery. To make matters worse, Yusei is forced to destroy his own dragon to avoid becoming dual puree. He later brings it back with salvagent, but in a downgraded, non-synchro version. No glamour, no glory. Cue the dramatic pause. Here comes the heavy part. Aporia reveals that he and his 3 comrades were the last survivors of a world destroyed by the momentum. Out of pure desperation, he begged Z1 to split his soul into 3 bitter shards, giving birth to the infamous emperors of Yliaster. All of it, just to try and stop the same messed up history from repeating itself. Yeah, that didn't quite work out, did it? Aporia's defeat is the kind of victory that lasts about as long as your phone battery on power saving mode. Yusei summons his 3 synchro dragons, Blackwing Dragon, Red Nova Dragon, and Shooting Star Dragon, pulls off a Shuden-style mega combo, and finally takes Aporia down for good. Team 5D's wins the WRGP and makes history as the first ever champions. But then the universe responds, "Congratulations, you've just unlocked Hell Mode." The sky literally splits open and reveals Arc Cradle, a colossal space station straight out of the future. At its core, a momentum spinning in reverse, because apparently, in the future, physics is just a suggestion. The city collapses, all momentum shut down, and guess what? No power means no Uber, no fridge, not even enough light to post about the apocalypse on Instagram. Director Lazar declares a state of emergency. Arc Cradle will crash into the city in 12 hours. One small hitch. Evacuation takes 24 hours. Simple math, big problem. And now for the plot twist we all knew was coming. The only D-wheels still working belong to Team 5D's and Team Ragnarok, conveniently protected by mystical forces and narrative contracts. To top it all off, guess who shows up alive? Sherry. She basically looked at the script and said, if Yusei tries to save the world, he dies. So, naturally, she sides with Z1, thinking that destroying the city is, believe it or not, an act of mercy. Humanitarian of the year, right? So, Sherry officially turns villain, doing everything she can to stop any attempt to save the city. Team Ragnarok, never wants to shy away from outlandish solutions, decides to channel the power of the 3 Norse gods, Thor, Loki, and Odin, to summon the Bifrost, a rainbow energy bridge straight to Arc Cradle. Because if things are going to get surreal, might as well go full style. Here's how it plays out. They channel divine power, build a bridge over Daedalus Bridge, and Yusei tries to cross it alone. Spoiler alert, that doesn't fly. Cue the rest of Team 5D's showing up on their D-Wheels Fast and Furious apocalypse style, and everyone makes the crossing together. Of course, the bridge starts collapsing halfway through, because structural integrity is clearly not a divine priority. And just when Akiza almost gets left behind, thanks to her D-wheel moving like a motorized turtle, Luna pulls off a death-defying parkour move, leaps onto Yusei's D-wheel, and saves the day. Once across, they meet a young guy with amnesia, because apparently everyone in this anime forgets their past at some point, who mysteriously guides them through the corridors of the station. And from beyond, the voice of Z1 echoes, "Welcome to my castle." Vibes? Immaculate. It's that classic anime moment. The screenwriter decides to split the party. Team 5D's is divided into 3 groups, each tasked with shutting down one of the cursed Yusei gears surrounding the central sun gear. And if you think it's just a matter of flipping a switch, think again. There's dueling, explosions, and existential drama. On Akiza and Crow's side, who shows up? None other than Sherry. Yes, that Sherry. She doesn't just enter the duel. She kicks things off by activating the field spell École de Zone, one of the heaviest illusion traps around. The gang thinks they're dueling 2 different versions of Sherry, but it's all a mirage. In reality, it's a 3-way duel where every monster is turned into a token, bland stand-ins with identical attack points. But Akiza isn't easily fooled. She unleashes the effect of her Black Rose Dragon and goes full field nuke on the illusion. That's when things really escalate. Sherry pulls a sinister combo from the graveyard and activates the field spell Soulbinding Gate, which wipes the board and dishes out 800 points of damage across the field. Here we find out that Sherry was driven purely by trauma, resentment, and the desperate desire to bring her family back. Yes, Z1 sold her the whole package. Time travel, erase the past, get a brand new family. And she bought it. No refunds, no cashback. Soulbinding Gate still lives up to its name as an OP little card, vaporizing any weak creature she deems unworthy, and throwing in some damage as a bonus. Z1 tries to tempt Crow with a picture-perfect world where the zero reverse never happened, and all the orphans he looks after are happy, living peaceful lives with families and pet dogs. But Crow, poor but principled, slaps that easy script nonsense aside and says, they'll build their own future, thanks. Once again, Akiza gives a masterclass in bravery. She sacrifices life points to summon Black Rose Dragon with no effect, opening a window of opportunity. Then Crow steps up, channels channels the power of Black-Winged Dragon and Akiza's spirit, unleashes Synchro Stream and Fairy Breath, and secures the win. Defeated, Sherry has her telenovela moment, recalling her father's teachings about justice and faith. In a spiritual twist, Black Rose Dragon shields her from the wreckage, goes full doctor mode, and manifests psychic healing powers. Naturally, Sherry switches sides and joins Team 5D's. Just when you thought it was over, think again. Jack, Luna, and Leo come face to face with none other than Aporia, now in full rage mode and literally jacked into the second Yusei gear. Yep, with drills aimed straight at his heart. Because what's a duel without the threat of actual death, right? He activates Fortissimo the Mobile Fortress, a field spell that basically turns life points into real-life hit points. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Souls Edition. If you lose, you die. The duel begins. And of course, Aporia goes straight for the psychological jugular. He targets Luna, the most physically vulnerable, and starts tearing her down with real-world damage. Watching his sister suffer, Leo spirals into your classic existential crisis, feeling useless, as always. Meanwhile, Aporia floods the field with his full Mechlord army and unleashes the brutal Mechlord Astro Dragon Asterisk. He's already charging up an attack that's not just lethal in the duel, it's fatal in reality. He looks the trio dead in the eyes and practically declares that humanity is pathetic. And if it were up to him, he'd have already hit the delete all humans button. So Leo, yeah, that kid who's basically been background noise the whole series, suddenly has an epiphany. Wait a minute, I'm actually part of this story. That's right, our boy decides to ditch the NPC life and jumps into the duel, not with cards, but by putting his own life on the line. He goes full all or nothing and uses double ripple to summon ancient fairy dragon onto his sister Luna's field. And of course, that costs him more life points than he even has. The dude's literally bankrupt in life points, but because every side character needs a little plot armor, Morphtronic Lantron shows up with its walking casino effect. A roulette wheel decides whether Leo clings to life with 100 life points or becomes a meme. And then comes the icing on the cake. The Crimson Dragon mark appears on the kid. That's right, Leo becomes a signer. He follows it up with an epic synchro summon, combining Lantron and Power Tool Dragon to bring out Lifestream Dragon, the life support tech dragon himself. And it's a beast. Resets everyone's life points to 2,000, nullifies damage, and throws in a hefty morale boost for good measure. Leo finally stops being the team's mascot and becomes a real member of Team 5D's. Now that a cheat code level dragon is on the field, Leo throws it in Aporia's face. Hope is far from dead. Lifestream Dragon doesn't just block damage, it shuts down any cheap win condition effects. Luna's not falling behind either. She brings back Ancient Fairy Dragon, destroys Fortissimo the Mobile Fortress, activates Synchro Monument, and gives the Synchros the green light. And Jack does the most Jack thing ever. He revives Red Dragon Archfiend, pulls off a double tuning, and summons Red Nova Dragon, the dragon with an ego even bigger than his own. The dragon trio basically turns into a Salvation Army cosplay squad and absolutely wrecks Asterisk's defenses. Aporia, the emo villain pretending he doesn't have feelings, finds out he can still feel pain, emotional pain, because, surprise, he still has hope in Z1. With his defeat, the second Yusei gear breaks down, but the art cradle keeps falling like bills at the end of the month. Inevitable. Yusei and Bruno finally reach the third Yusei gear, but then the plot punches you in the face. Bruno is actually Antinomy, a henchman of Z1 and a fake former friend. Yeah, the guy was a spy, undercover, implanted with fake memories just to fool Team 5D's. Total Black Mirror level twist. The duel kicks off in hard mode, a battlefield surrounded by black holes where the loser gets sucked into oblivion. Antinomy pulls out Delta Axel Synchro, basically the ultra instinct of synchro summons. That's when TG Halberd Cannon shows up, a monster that negates absolutely everything. This thing says no, even to birthday party invites. Yusei, as always, is hanging on by a thread with just 100 life points left. It seems like it's over. Then comes the soap opera twist. We learn that Antinomy was a duelist from the future who once believed in hope until the world was destroyed by an overload of synchros. And who saved him? Z1, of course. Yeah, things are looking grim. Yusei needs a miracle of miracles. He pulls off an insane combo using Wild Heart, Revenge Return, and Balance Blaster. All of it just to set up Shooting Star Dragon for a multi-attack barrage. Then comes the nail-biting moment. Checking the top 5 cards of his deck, he needs to find 3 tuners. And somehow, against all odds, there they are. Turbo Synchron, Nitro Synchron, and Hyper Synchron. The crowd goes wild. 3 attacks, halberd cannon falls. But to escape the black hole, someone has to be left behind. That's when Antinomy reveals it was all a lesson to teach Yusei how to master the Delta Axel Synchro, a tutorial essentially, with a life or death price tag. He sacrifices himself, delivers an inspiring speech straight out of a feel-good movie, and vanishes into the void. Yusei is now left carrying the weight of the ultimate technique, and the loss of a friend who, in the end, believed in him. With all three Yusei gears neutralized, the path is clear for the Sun gear. The final showdown with Z1 is on the horizon. Well, Yusei's gear finally stopped trying to crush the timeline, and Team 5D's is back together to face, guess what? Yep, another threat from the future. Because in the present, trouble usually involves chicken thieves and small-time crooks. Leo wakes up from her eternal nap and steps up as the 6th signer, proudly rocking the most stylish tattoo in the series, the dragon mark. And if you thought Bruno was just that mysterious dude with the deep voice and alt-protagonist hair, surprise, he's actually Antinomy, a future agent working under Z1. Before vanishing, he hands Yusei an exclusive how-to, Delta Axel Synchro, because regular synchros just aren't cutting it anymore. The squad climbs aboard the Ark Cradle, a floating fortress that clearly skips city zoning permits, and finally comes face to face with Z1. His plan, nothing major, just blow up Domino City to prevent momentum from becoming the universe's next Chernobyl and wiping out humanity in the future. Totally reasonable. And to top it off, the villain reveals he was the mastermind behind the Zero Reverse, pulled the strings of Aporia, Antinomy, and even that guy Paradox, because apparently leaving fate to chance is for amateurs. Then it's Aporia's turn, our favorite doom and gloom philosopher, to throw down against his former ally Z1. Plot twist, turns out the emo from the future never truly gave up hope. It's like the ending of a primetime soap opera. He tries to draw the magical Afterglow card to win instantly, but Z1 counters with the infamous Laesian, the Time Lord, turning a guaranteed victory into a 1 in 34 game of Russian roulette. Of course, Aporia's plan goes south, otherwise the show would be over. He misses with Afterglow, loses, dies, and becomes pure energy to supercharge Yusei's D-Wheel, which now flies. That's right, it flies. Meanwhile, Ark Cradle is about to give Domino City a goodnight kiss as it starts floating upside down in the sky, because apparently, gravity is just a suggestion at this point. The squad chips in and lends Yusei their dragons: Red Dragon Archfiend, Black Winged Dragon, Black Rose Dragon, Life Stream Dragon, Power Tool Dragon, and Ancient Fairy Dragon. The duel kicks off in the sky. Z1 casually drops a Matayan, the Time Lord, just to make it clear he's the boss here. Spoiler alert, Time Lords are invincible, indestructible, and 100% no fun to duel against. Yusei counters with 5 monsters at once, because subtlety clearly isn't his thing, and slams down a double synchro summon to bring out Black Winged Dragon and Red Dragon Archfiend. His strategy? Hang on just long enough for the Time Lords to shuffle themselves back into Z1's deck during the standby phase. Z1 just laps it off, activates Endless Emptiness, and casually summons 3 Time Lords like he's ordering a Doomsday combo meal. The result? Yusei loses all his monsters and is left with an empty hand, and even emptier hopes. Then by some miracle, Yusei draws Ancient Fairy Dragon, only for Z1 to drop 5 Time Lords on the field. And that's when we get the plot twist straight out of a telenovela. Z1 is actually Yusei from the future. Yep, not even Freud could explain this one. Z1 brings the full lore drop. In the future, humanity became so addicted to technology that the moment went berserk, turned into a turbocharged Skynet, and decided humans were expendable. The solution? Copy the body and mind of Yusei, the greatest hero of his generation. The result? Z1, an elderly Yusei in the throes of an existential crisis, armed with a plan for selective genocide. The duel goes off the rails, 5 Time Lords attacking mercilessly. Yusei, because he's the protagonist, survives with a mere 750 life points. And that's when a light appears. Mr. Fudo's spirit shows up saying, "Get up, son." Inspired, Yusei summons Lifestream Dragon, restores his life points, and delivers the killer line, "I'll save the future," without destroying the present. Z1 activates Infinite Light, that busted card that stops the Time Lords from returning to the deck. And just to crank up the drama, the Ark Cradle finally crashes into Domino City, because what's a finale without some urban apocalypse? Yusei drops Turbo Synchron on the field, and pulls off a play so wild not even Kaiba would dare. He lowers all of his synchro monsters to level 1. And then, my friend, he taps into the legendary Overtop Clear Mind, pulls off the most insane limit over Axel Synchro ever, and summons the iconic Shooting Quasar Dragon, the ultimate embodiment of friendship, camaraderie, and good old plot armor. If you thought destroying gods was Goku's job, think again, because Yusei brought Shooting Quasar Dragon to the duel, a monster so busted it shrugs off the Time Lord's destruction effects and thinks one attack just isn't enough, so it attacks 5 times. Clearly, this dragon's channeling that flex on society energy. Z1 tries to act like a true final boss, slamming 10 Time Lords onto the field, but Yusei's the kind of guy who refuses to lose, even in rock, paper, scissors. And when Quasar goes down, he doesn't waste a second before summoning Shooting Star Dragon like it's muscle memory. But wait, the over-the-top insanity isn't over yet. Z1 activates Infinite Light, drops a 20,000 attack beast called Cephalon, the ultimate Time Lord, and casually throws in 4 more Time Lords with 4,000 attack each. And you thought your cheating friend in Uno was toxic. Backed into a corner and staring down public humiliation, Yusei pulls out Converging Wishes, the kind of card that screams written by the scriptwriters to save the hero. The result? Stardust Dragon appears with a ridiculous 23,000 attack in full Deal With It Society mode, and in a final blow that probably made even the scriptwriter sweat, Yusei obliterates Cephalon and Z1, saving Neo Domino City once again. Z1, in true repentant villain fashion, realizes that blowing up the city might not be such a great idea after all, so he does what any sensible villain would. He uses his own body, made of momentum, to neutralize the Arc Cradle's negative momentum. Translation: he literally throws himself into the problem and saves everyone. The city breathes a sigh of relief, the public maintenance department is kicked into the history books, and guess who becomes mayor? That's right, Lazar, the most over-the-top character in the whole series. In Neo Domino's version of democracy, whoever shouts the loudest wins the election. Yusei becomes a senior programmer and develops the Fortune mainframe, aiming to turn the city into a sort of globally connected social startup. A year later, each member of Team 5D's decides to pursue their own path. Crow becomes a traffic officer, Akiza goes into medicine, Luna and Leo land a family reality show deal, and Jack, he sets his sights on becoming an international dueling superstar. But before everyone heads off, there's that one classic company dinner, where the question that haunts every shonen story arises: what is our true path? And of course, there's only one way to find out: by dueling. The final duel begins in the most fitting way possible, racing down the highway, because normal duelists play cards, but 5D's duelists play cards at 200 kilometers per hour. Right off the bat, Stardust Dragon and Red Dragon Archfiend hit the field, only to be temporarily banished by Star Excursion, because hey, drama is never too much. Jack's not here to mess around and pulls some Time Lords out of nowhere, clearly inspired by the last duel. Yusei fires back with Nitro Warrior, but takes a hit from an Exploder Dragon Wing. Jack raises the stakes with Crimson Blader, shutting down Yusei's ability to summon any monsters on his next turn. Yep, it's that classic "if I play, you don't move," but our hero won't back down. With a defense worthy of someone dodging a debt collector, Yusei takes the hits with Fake Gardna and Sonic Chick, setting the stage for the triumphant return of the dragons. And when they do return, Jack pulls off a combo so brutal it's just showing off. A double-tuned synchro that brings out the beast, Red Nova Dragon, casually dropping onto the field with a whopping 6,000 attack points. Then Yusei summons Formula Synchron, pulls off that badass Axel Synchro, and brings back the legendary Shooting Star Dragon. Jack powers up his dragon with Red Cocoon, and launches an attack so fierce it'd make even Kaiba break a sweat. Yusei counters with High and Low, going all in. He draws 3 cards. The first 2 are barely hanging on by a thread, but the third is Quillbolt Hedgehog with exactly 800 attack points. A cosmic miracle that balances the dragons perfectly. In his final move, Yusei calls on the old guard, Junk Synchron, Speed Warrior, Sonic Chick, and Quillbolt Hedgehog. He brings them all together to summon Junk Warrior, the hero who represents every underdog, every reject, every overlooked soul, now arriving with 5,500 attack points to grind Red Dragon Archfiend's face into the pavement. In the end, this duel wasn't just about proving who's strongest, it was about each of them finding their own path. Jack sets off to conquer the world as the new king. Crow enters the pro dueling scene. Akiza heads overseas to study medicine. Leo and Luna choose to live with their parents, though Leo still holds on to the dream of becoming a duelist. And Yusei stays, because he realizes his soul is tied to this city. His role is to make sure Neo Domino remains a home for anyone who ever wants to return. At the end, the scener marks vanish. The Crimson Dragon takes its leave, and each member of Team 5D's goes their own way, bound by the eternal promise of the bonds they forged. And as Yusei says in that epic closing moment, life is an endless riding duel. So, keep racing toward your ideal future.